call meeting to order. 3 present, 1 online, 1 absent. First of all, Michael County County Engineer. A few things here.
Yeah, I think that kind of still scrambling a little bit. Sorry. Just go through the report here. Attended the ISAC conference. I saw Shirley and Steve, and and Mark. Yes,
And Brenda and Jane.
a lot of people. So that was good. Met with a lot of the other county engineers. Through permitting process for the cable installations. Have a into the survey boundary on Happy Hollow Road. So I went out there and did that on Tuesday. Site an owner visit for Bridge 126, which is on the docket for fiscal year 26. So we went and met with the
Cars are putting in.
no, that's this year we're looking at doing. That's Bridge 317A. So this is for another one. This is going to involve purchasing right of way, and so what does that look like? Changing over a bridge to a box culvert requires land and things like that. So we're talking to the owners about clearing and stockpiling, and it's a whole process. Involves the DNR. Bid tabs for rock, metal pipe, and tractors have been received. This can hand this to you. That's mine. So I don't know if we want to go into all of that right now.
Step by step. Yeah.
Okay. So tractor quotes. This is a tractor quote for the Fort Shop. If this is in response to the roadside being us getting the approximately 300,000 from the rural roadside fund in July. Just wanted to quote for a new tractor so we'd have a full fleet, all be relatively new. For all 5 shops, came in at the John Deere came in at 135.7K, and the Case came in at $133,600. I think the maintenance shop guys are pretty happy with their Deere, so they probably lean that way, all things equal. But that's kind of, we gotta, as a purchase like this would require forward discussion.
Is that a similar model to what the other Deere is?
Yes, they're equivalent.
Parts wise, it would be.
That's beyond my knowledge. It's multiple copies here. Each take one. That's a discussion as to perhaps a little bit later as to what the board would like to do on.
Yeah, I think maybe we could wait till next week when everyone's here.
Yeah, we just got those when I was at ISAC, so I haven't processed everything myself.
Well, historically, your maintenance guys have been pretty happy with the John Deere.
I don't think they've had any issues with the Case as far as I know, but I think that the preference kind of is but I don't, that's just a quick talk to Jeff and this is,
That's not a big difference.
it's not a big difference in price and it's just kind of. This is some good news. These are the metal pipe, bids that came in. You need one more? On the 2024 pipe, across the board, all sizes came down. So we were pleasantly surprised by those numbers. So the metal culverts is the middle one, is the one that is the cheapest. Lowest bid, I should say.
We need a motion to accept.
I move to accept the quotes on
I'll send it back.
the pipe.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second, to accept the metal culverts as the low culvert bidder. Is there any further discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
The rock bids came in. So the rock for the price of the rock,
You have copies of that one or not?
yes, we do.
If I can make some.
You only had Brewing's bid on it, which was not surprising.
Like about the same price as, the winter rock.
Yeah. The price to haul it, is, I think, a little bit cheaper. The price of the rock is 55 cents more expensive, so we're talking about a pretty low inflation rate on that. Keep in mind that the price that you're seeing is the price hauled. And we are in discussions as to whether or not we will haul our own rock or some kind of hybrid of hauling and having it. I'm trying to figure out what it is we're gonna do. We are surprised, pleasantly surprised at the lack of inflation on the whole price. So
Application of any of this would take place after July 1st, correct?
that's part of the question is how much funds are we gonna have in our secondary road fund at the time? Because a lot of project work would be happening later in the summer, so it might be actually advantageous for us to move some of the rock earlier rather than later. Plus, the roads are in reasonable shape to do it as well. So we're a little bit exploring those options. Okay.
You want to
Take a motion.
a motion to accept the bids?
Okay.
I get just a question on that, before we go through all of this with a vote. When you accept the bids, we're not accepting the requirement that we're hauling every piece of it. We're just moving to accept
For that we do haul.
for the amount that we do haul or something like that. I just want to be clear on our motion that we're,
And I can just take that here.
yeah.
Do you want to amend your motion?
I'll amend it. We leave it up to you as to whether,
Well,
as best judgment, whether we accept it as call the
Okay.
price for the cash and kit.
Question,
Yep.
do you, is our bid that we have the option of hauled rock quarry pickup?
Yeah, I think that's what
That's
we're,
what we're making the motion.
yeah.
You'll have the option to choose either way.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to accept the bid from Brunings for the rocks, for the rock. The hauling will be at the engineer's discretion. Is there any further discussion? If none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So I guess I have a question for the board and maybe this is a discussion for next week's agenda, but do we want to review ideas and have board input on those rural roadside funds for the roadside budget for those July disbursements? I have the disbursements from our initial budget and from our May disbursement kind of already, I call it spent.
Yeah.
But do we want to talk about the July disbursement that we had talked about as a board, because it's gonna involve equipment next week. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at that. As long as nothing's coming up until July anyway.
Yeah, and I will actually next week, I will be gone DC, so I will not be here except for like Steve through Teams next week. So it might behoove us to go the following week.
That's fine.
2 weeks and a discussion on roadside
It's
expenditures.
expenditures, it'll be equipment expenditures is what we're looking at doing.
I'm
So-
fine with doing that in 2 weeks.
And that's what the that case and that deer equipment are talking about is the July disbursement.
Yeah. That'll come out of the upcoming budget.
So, yeah.
And I'd like to see on the equipment, an option for front wheel assist. I know that we resale front, if we have front wheel assist on when we turn the in. I heard have some objections, but perhaps we want to look at that, have that one roll in the ditches earlier this year, and I think they want to take a discussion about that.
All right, Steve, you keep cutting out, but I think what you were trying to say is that you would like an option for the four-wheel drive tractors also because of an increased resale value? Is that?
That's what I heard.
Correct.
Okay, I can look into getting us more quotes then. Okay, I can do that.
Are you gonna be in after the meeting?
Yes, yes, and then, the fiber optic lines are continuing to get more permit requests and we're backlogged on that, so I'm going as fast as I can to get that, through. Received some applications for our open, summer positions, 2 engineering techs, and then we want a roadside technician. So we're still open for that. This inquiry about the large invoice is still ongoing. I want to work with Andy when he gets back on our language that we use.
That's this week, isn't it?
His auto reply was March 25th.
Oh, okay.
So
Maybe he'll be back this week.
Sure.
I have to be in.
So we have some archaeology inspection bids that came back to us. We're still coordinating with the tribes. Got an email on Friday from the Army Corps of Engineers stating that there wants to be more discussion, so we're gonna have more discussion before we award the bid on that. And then
Bridge is where?
that bridge is east of Jackson Junction. Continued my NACO leadership training. It was an off week, so I didn't do much, but and then we're continuing our GIS department and website expansion as well, and continuing budget discussions. I think you had something for me that if you wanted to ask me about the Old Stage Road culvert.
Yes,
So
the clearing of brush and trees in there has
yes,
come up from some citizens.
so we cleared it, and then now the operation that we are doing is cleaning out the culvert and the downstream of the culvert so that we can have as smooth a flow through the area as possible so it doesn't silt up again. But it's just in a bad spot, so it's gonna almost always silt up. It's gonna be constant maintenance. So
Some of those are made to silt to a certain level.
yeah, I'm not sure on the design on that. I haven't looked into that, but I can tell you that
Did you guys check downstream farther toward the river too? Because hearsay is there's another one down there that
I have not done that.
actually in worse shape than the one that we're talking about right now.
Let me put it on my to-do list here to go look at it.
Like you need more to your list.
That's just fine.
And I think the second question along those lines was the removal of some large trees and whether that was necessary or not.
Is this beyond the discussion that we had, was it 2 weeks ago?
Same, it was added on to that.
Okay. And is that the one-on-one conversation that we have, or is that something you want to address now?
Oh, it's fine, we can address it later.
Okay.
I think that pretty much just comes down to the engineer's discretion too. If it's in the right of way,
Yeah, I had,
if there's a need
there's
for the removal, it's justifiable.
the, there was discussion at the ISAC meeting quite a bit about who does, what they do on all of their.
Well, go ahead and say what the discussion was that I,
But the discussion was, any tree in the right of way is removed. And there are some exceptions on back slopes and certain distances away from the right of way that Johnson County does that nobody else really did. But basically it was, if there's a tree in the right of way, you're removing it. Is the
Liability reasons.
well, collision reasons, and yeah, it's a collision reason. It's a site reason because deer and other animals can, are likely to hide. And it's when you mow things, it's easier to mow. It allows for more storage of snow and before drifts start happening, you have a longer time, so it makes it easier for the blade operators to keep track of. There's lots of reasons to move trees in the right of way. And then obviously if there are culverts downstream, larger trees are a clogging hazard. So for those culverts. So
But we're trying to move toward less mowing and more native species so we can hold water and not create a channel for water to erode our ditches and our infrastructure.
That's the IVRM plan that my predecessor had. I just in the discussions with the other county engineers, and there's varying degrees of that use of that. I've had conversations with Joel Fonts about what it is they do, and it's kind of a they hybrid in and look for advantageous ways to use the native plants. Just
Whether it's native plants or grasses, do those hold soil better than timber?
absolutely they do.
So getting whether it's grasses or prairie in there will hold the soil better than having the trees.
So it's not as much silt. The tree roots will provide slope stability, but if you have a good cover with grasses, that's very good as well. So the whole point that's just I'm in a new position, so I'm not sure which direction to go on that, but those discussions have happened at a very high level, nothing real detailed. But we are, in the case of Old Stage Road, we have a lot of stumps that we couldn't grub because it's part of a stream. And so there's still kind of a collision hazard, even though they're not huge. And so we've made the decision to plant native species there, and for the reason of we don't want to try to mow that because we would be mowing wood stumps instead of. And the other reason that we also like it there is because it is a silting hazard. There is a little benefit for the native species to prevent erosion at a higher capacity that way.
Yeah, and that Iowa roadside vegetation management plan, it really isn't, especially with our topography, so a rubber stamp that's going to fit perfect for.
And I don't even have a great sense of that, but there was the Old Stage Road, we're putting that in, and then also for W14, we're continuing the same criteria for the native species there as was done last year. And as far as I know, that's the extent of which our native plantings are going in. But that's me not getting into the weeds on things. So,
Michael,
yes. Yes, Steve.
when we trim trees, are we able to do low stumping, leaving a tall?
Did you restate your question because you're a little bit choppy?
When we clear trees, are we able to not high stump them, but try to low stump them to keep that traffic hazard down? I left a comment in the chat.
I hope this note finds you out. Is this it?
No. It's about, trees.
Can we cut trees and lower and avoid traffic hazard?
Yes.
We can hand cut the trees, with chainsaws, if that's. We haven't gone to that level yet, so. That would be if we needed to cut it a mower. Just go down. Let's see.
We can continue that discussion next week.
We can continue that discussion next week.
2 weeks,
2 week.
because you won't be here next.
I won't be here next week, but I should be able to get on Teams as best as Teams will allow me.
Hopefully the connection will be better. right?
Yes, I hope so. Yes, any other questions?
Back to the Happy Hollow, you checked the survey on that. What was this is just a final, right, clear off?
The survey is not clear, so this is the whole issue got brought up because I have to permit these cables, and I went out and did a site visit on the cables, and it looks like the farmer is planting in our right of way. And so where is the right of way? Well, the right of way is questionable. It's not had a survey to establish the line definitively. And it's another question for Andy that I have, that we're gonna have to figure out what it is we need to do before we permit this cable, because the cable is being placed inside the farm, both of which at this time appear as if they could be in county right of way.
Is that on the Madison Road side or the?
It's on the Madison, yeah, it's north of Madison. So. Don't know all the
Are we-
legal implications yet.
Are we gonna have that surveyed then or?
This is gonna be a question for Andy. Our surveyor is gonna have that conversation with Andy, and then perhaps just provide a county survey for that right of way. And at the extent of which, I don't know if it's the whole length of, I just know of one particular property questionable issue. And we're looking into it.
Because there was a lot of recent work done on that part of that property,
Okay.
wasn't there? Is that the one you're talking about?
So I'm not sure which one you're referring to. There is one north of the property that I'm talking about that they have, it looks to be a new drive, a new gravel drive, but I don't know which one you're referring to be certain.
You could always ask after the meeting too.
I can show you the property after the meeting, absolutely, but I don't want to get into the addresses right now because there's a lot of things we don't know yet.
Are there quite a few contractors running the cable in the county right now?
There are a lot of contractors right now, and Accentech has all of the southeast part of the county has a huge project. And I spent my weekend going through those maps. So, yeah. Anyhow,
You want approval on your hires for assistance to the engineer?
yes, I do want that. I don't.
That was one thing on your agenda yet.
That
You're
is-
running out of time.
Yes.
I move to approve the hire of the assistant engineer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the hired assistants to the engineer. Any further discussion? None, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
It's Steve. Steve, did you say aye?
Yes.
We should name them in the minutes, so.
So, yeah, Mike Wise and Matt Mitchell.
Anyone have anything else for Mike? So you do it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
$10:00. Next on the agenda, John Lukey, GIS and IT Director. Audio video discussion and resolution with CPI contract. Morning, John.
I think the last time we talked, you guys kind of had me look into another company. So we looked into Tri-State Audio in Alaska. We did work with the QSYS system that's on the laptop, and we found that Andy, who runs Tri-State, could actually work with the system that's installed. And I did get some pricing, or we kind of generically talked about pricing of the assisted listening system with Andy, and I think he could do that work. I think we also have still an unpaid bill with CTI.
That's what brought this up again, because they emailed me again, asking me to pay our bill.
So I guess my recommendation at this point would be to kind of try to tie those loose ends up, whether you want to pay what's owed, or if you want Andy to go through, County Attorney Andy Vandermont, go through and see if he can reduce the bill somewhat. But I think moving forward, we should work with, a different company. So.
I'd like Andy to try to negotiate a reduced bill since we didn't get the full package we asked for. And then work with the other company.
Because part of it would be, if the other company doesn't want that, then we shouldn't be buying $8,000 microphone.
Right. Yeah, the guy from Alaska, he thought, the system that was in place would work, that he could make that work.
Except the speakers.
He would like to replace the speakers that are in the ceiling with something else.
He thinks he can do that so that people in the gallery can hear us, even if they have no hearing problem in the first place. They can hear us better.
Right. But just to cover your legal obligations, I think both companies were still recommending the assisted listening devices, having those available. So
I guess I would be in favor of having Andy for sure pursue. This is not $25,000 worth of product. It's not even half that at best. So. And moving forward, his estimate of a cost would be another. Well,
yeah, he didn't actually come up with any pricing.
Midwest, what was the name of it?
It's Tri-State Sound and Lighting.
Sound.
because by and
On
large,
Alaska.
his evaluation of what we paid for our product itself wasn't terribly out of line.
No, he agreed that it was
A fair
a
price.
fair price.
Yeah, I guess I'd be, before we go along with that, we could get Andy to look into it, get any reduction, at least a payment in order to get this to work.
Do we need a motion on that? Just go ahead and tell him, I think.
It seems to be, we need a,
Why don't we have basically the motion would be the part to recommend Andy Vandermont to negotiate with CTI a reduced final payment so that we can end our,
Cut ties.
cut that.
I would motion that we have Andy pursue a reduced payment, negotiate with CTI, and also then move forward with Lacrosse or Alaska Company.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. And then negotiate CTI for reduced rate and to hire Tri-State
Tri-State Sound and Light.
Sound and Light on Alaska. Is there any further discussion? If none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
When does your new person start?
I think he'll start the first week of April,
Awesome.
so, yeah. Well, we can,
Can we announce the name since he's accepted and he's notified his previous employer?
yeah, so our new employee is Lee Fullhart.
Okay.
He's actually kind of a Decorah native. Famous for wrestling, I guess. I think Ben went to high school with him.
April 1st, you said?
Yeah.
So how's everything going up there with the engineering departments? You guys working together to up on the internet?
Oh, yeah, Quantum has been working with Beth Novotny in the engineer's office. They're kind of redoing their front page, trying to have more information for people with maps and just kind of basic what the engineer's office does. So I think it's working. I know they've been working together on that, so.
Anybody else have anything for Jenna? Think you're good to go? Thank you. Consent agenda?
Yeah, I've got a minute on the hat.
I move to accept.
Oh, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? None, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes. Committee reports.
We had an awesome ISAC conference last week. Steve Kelsey, Mark Baldick, myself on the board, Jane Schultz, Brenda Kreitzer, and Ben, staff, and Michael Cuny were all down there. There's an awesome HR section, human resources section we all attended that we were glad to be in. And then there was we're hoping that is produced on a webinar so that all employees can have access to that same presentation. It was really well done on county structure and how county is supposed to work together, department to department and board to departments. And it was really well done. Some of the others we went to were House File 718 recap on how it affects our ability to tax. You guys want to add to this?
No, I think it was just overwhelming response from everybody there from both sides of the aisle, so to speak, that they're not happy with the way the state is cutting funding. So it was interesting from a year ago when people were kind of like, oh, this could be a problem, to pretty much 100% across the board. Everybody in attendance is not happy with how the state's
So
funding.
House File 718 is not a big hit.
No, and
No.
it's, as they said, it's not going away. They're certainly not gonna eat crow on it, but they are potentially open to making some modifications in it. But it's one of those things that the train's coming down the track and at some point it's probably gonna derail, but I feel good about some of the decisions we're making to help mitigate that burden on the county, I guess. But it could lead to, I think, reading the tea leaves, so to speak, it could lead to further cuts at some point in time. Will.
I have nothing else.
I say that he was proud of this table. It shows our need to proceed further. Shirley can fill in the blanks.
I'd love to, but I didn't catch what you said because it kept cutting in and out. Were you referring to the human resources?
Check the chat.
The HR training showed our need for HR improvements. Yes, and yeah. I think right now, we heard from Andy that the HR consultant firm we hired is nearly done with their review of our handbook, employee handbook, and we should be seeing that first draft soon. So that's wonderful.
Pretty much every presentation we went to is that you need to have a handbook and it needs to be good.
Correct. And
Review
training.
every year or two rather than every
Yes.
8 or whatever it is since we last looked.
And to conduct the proper trainings on a regular schedule, which we need to be picking up on. So we're on the right track.
And we had a meeting with the Farm Bureau Board, to go over our upcoming budget, to ask questions, why we do this, why we do that. And I think they were really shocked too when we started discussing the House File 718. And they were asking questions about what they could do to lobby down in Des Moines for things we need. We gave them a few ideas to see where it goes, but it's just one of those things.
We did go to, I know there's a solid waste meeting last week, Farm Bureau meeting. There was a meeting too that a couple of us attended. Steve and I attended the food bank meeting, their board meeting. And I just want to put a plug in for our local food bank, and a lot of you probably volunteer at it. They do like 330,000 pounds of food a year distributed. Of that 330,000 pounds that they distribute, 200,000 pounds of it is called rescue food. So they go to Fairway, Hy-Vee, Quick Trip, Luther College, and rescue leftover food that's still edible and still completely consumable and use it at the food bank. That means 200,000 pounds of organic matter is not going to our landfill, which is awesome. So kudos to the food bank.
We were invited to attend that meeting because they're extremely pleased we're allowing them to continue to be at the new building.
The Washington Street building.
Washington Street County Services.
Winneshiek
County.
Community Services.
Yeah, I think that's straight.
You'll get it.
Yeah.
You mentioned House File 718. Would it be advantageous for this group to elaborate on what it is, what it's doing, and what your concerns are?
Ben can best speak to that.
The goal of the legislation, as the legislature was, their intent was to make it so that county tax levies go down. But really, what it's done is restricted, it's taken away the power of the local board of supervisors to decide what is best for their local constituents, because they no longer have the authority to levy property taxes and beyond what the bill restricts. So for us this year, it meant that since our growth in taxable value was so low, that the maximum we could levy in our general fund and our rural fund was the same as levy rate as we did last year. So, which means we have very little new money since our growth rate was so low. If your growth rate gets to be higher, then it makes you lower your levy rate so that you're to try to keep your dollars of new money limited. So
It will affect us for the
it
coming
will.
years.
It's 4 years of this trying to dial us back with a hard cap at the end. Some counties are responding, trying to anticipate where they'll be in 4 years. This board hasn't, gotten super concerned and trying to make a whole bunch of cuts in the first year, because we don't know if they'll make changes or how it'll change, or different people are elected and how it might look 4 years from now. We're just following what the current rules are, and trying to live within this restricted budget.
And it not only affects the county level, it's really gonna affect the city levels too.
Yeah.
Because their funding is even less than the county's.
Well, at the same time, all of the costs of goods go up for maintenance, maintainers and gravel and.
So we had a
gonna be tough.
total taxable value increase of like 0.9%. And so everyone here knows that inflation is at larger than 0.9%. So we have to try to do, without even increasing, we have to be able to maintain what we currently do. Something is gonna have to get cut. So that's where our struggles are.
In your workshops, did you have people of power in those workshops to hear the county's concerns?
The liaison for ISAC, Lucas Binkin, he goes back and forth between ISAC and the legislature. He was in attendance and so was Carrie Johnson, who's the Iowa,
She works for the Department of
Department of
Management.
Management, who enforces all of this and checks to make sure all the counties are doing it. They were pretty beaten up by the people in attendance at the convention and finally said, we're just the messenger, because they were really hearing it a lot. The comment Lucas Binkin made, which I found interesting, is that the more we contact the legislature currently with our concerns about this legislation, the more angry they're getting. And he said, if you keep it up, they'll take it out on you. You remember that comment?
Well, his indication was so much of the comments are coming aggressively.
Aggressive comments, because people are really angry.
They're not against hearing the comments, but the way they're being presented to them. They're-
So if you contact them, do it respectfully and just keep it professional. But it's a hot topic right now, real hot topic. The problem is they hit the red button and voted for it when they really didn't read it and they didn't know how it was affecting counties and towns. They did not realize the effects it would cause.
This is a House bill?
House File 718.
So
That's
that
where it
would be
originated. That's where it originated last year, but it's now a state law.
Yeah.
That
It passed.
there is a code section. We still call it House File 718, but there's actually a code section. It's in the code now. 23, I don't remember the
23,
number.
26.
Yeah,
I'd have to
20
look it
something,
up.
yeah.
That's why speaking with like the Farm Bureau, because they are a very powerful lobbying group within the state. May not always agree with everything they lobby for, but if we could get them on our side to help try and change certain things so we can receive a little bit more funding would be great.
I think the message though that we all heard down there is it's not gonna change a whole lot. They're not gonna roll back anything. We're kind of stuck with this for the next 4 years. We need to be
Part
prepared.
of the message, at least that the auditors talk about, is if we're stuck with this decreased funding, then we at least need to have the state quit passing unfunded mandates. So they keep telling us we have to do more things that cost money that we can no longer raise. And what we talk about is suggesting alternatives. I mean, are there other funding sources we
Different
could?
solutions.
Yes. If they don't like property tax, which is what the message is they don't like property tax. So why don't we need to be, at least my opinion when we talked to the auditors was that we aren't going to get them to change that philosophy that they don't like property taxes. That's in their heads that that's what they want to do. So why don't we suggest other alternatives? We aren't going to get rid of this part of the philosophy.
One of, and I think we talked about this before, but one of the unfunded mandates that Ben is referring to, and just one of them, there are several, is part of this plan is that now Ben's office, the auditor's office in every county has to send a mailing to every single property owner to tell them what their tax will be on their property with this new rule.
Yeah, and basically, and it's to announce, so when we have the budget hearing, the notice is to announce to the public, not just as a public notice in the paper or on the website. Now we have to mail every person to tell them when the budget hearings are. So the schools, the cities and the counties, you'll be getting a mailing probably later this week I'm still working with the company to get it organized.
How much is that costing our county specifically?
I haven't
Eight?
gotten, I put 8,000 into the budget. We had other counties that were saying that it was gonna be more like 12,000. So that's money
So
that we
average
have
out
to
across the
spend
state.
to be able to tell you when the public hearings are. And we already published it in the newspaper and put it on our website and so on, so,
Display that invitation with pride.
yeah.
It costs you a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what kind of other sources of revenue does a county have in the toolbox?
We have very few right now, so there are things that we charge fees for service, but there aren't a lot, and that isn't nearly enough to make this up. So unless they give us some other authority, we're just gonna be having to cut programs, basically, is what it is.
We tried to buy a money tree, but we couldn't find
Yeah.
one.
I mean,
Well, there's we
Bake
get,
sales.
Bake sales.
Bake sales.
well, we get revenue from increased sales tax and hotel motel and.
We don't get any hotel motel, but sales tax revenue, currently we get sales tax revenue, but that is the local option sales tax. We only get the share that's for the rural part, and each city gets a share. So that actually doesn't help our general fund, because what we're getting is for the rural. What the county gets is for the rural folks. So that helps the rural fund, but that doesn't help the general fund. So if they authorized a local option sales tax that didn't get split up, it was only for the county to collect countywide and keep the whole amount and put into our general fund for everybody, that could offset property tax.
Yeah.
Another idea that I've mentioned is maybe we needed local option gas tax, or that they could charge extra at the pumps in Winneshiek County and use that money to pay for road projects.
To let us keep our own money.
Yeah,
Oh.
so, something like that, rather than the county having to put in property tax money for road projects, maybe that we could charge it at the pump. Another one that schools and some other levy authorities have are locally authorized income tax surcharges. So like, for those of us in the Decorah School District, I think it's like 6% of what we pay to the state. We also pay an extra 6% to the school, and that helps offset their other tax burden. So if they opened up some more options, and even if it was something we had to take to the voters and say, do you authorize this kind of tax to replace property tax? And if people want to do it, then why not give them that option? There are a lot of other funding options if they don't like property tax, which I get their argument, because a property tax isn't necessarily a fair way to do certain types of things. I mean, if you own 1,000 acres of farmland versus if you own a small house in town, should you pay 10 times as much for the sheriff's department, or 10 times as much for the some of the general fund things, operating my office or Brenda's office or something? Maybe that isn't fair. So find us a way that you think is fair if you aren't going to let us use this option.
Or if you don't own any property.
Yeah.
And just lease.
Yeah.
Do you have something?
Oh, yeah, perhaps, like a weight tax on roads, to increase that, if you license your truck. If they could accelerate that, because, the big rigs and tractors and loaders and all this stuff are what tear up the roads, cost everybody more money.
And I mean, right now, you're probably going to get the Farm Bureau to help us out with this one, but I mean, farmers get to have their fuel tax exempt. So they're doing more damage than the average car and not even paying to help fix that road.
I think the equation was one pass of a 90,000 pound load of trailer is the equivalent of 10,000 vehicles.
10,000 cars.
Just chasing their tail.
Yeah.
It never gets better.
One more quick note about, sorry, changing subject, but another thing at the conference, I went to the emergency responders seminar. And there is a huge need for more trained emergency responders in the entire state. So if you know of people or you yourselves want to get trained on that, there's a big need for emergency responders in our state and in our county. So just FYI.
Go back to the budget. Anybody comes up with any really good ideas, we're willing to listen.
Yeah.
I have a thought. You know how the city makes us pay for the curb and gutter? Which we don't own, actually. Why can't people who live on those gravel roads help pay for the gravel that goes in front of their house?
Cities have authority to impose street assessments. Counties do not have that authority. Right now, the only time we can impose a street assessment is if everyone voluntarily does it along that road. So.
If you ask for volunteers.
I think we know how that would work.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
We have talked about reducing access driveways, like those need to be covered more by the individual property owners rather than the county crew doing it.
Yeah, actually, the 6 counties are gonna be working together on
Yeah.
driveway permits. So they can kind of group them all together, so all 6 counties have the same permit. Because right now it was all over the place. Some pay for them, some make the owners pay for all of it, so. Those 6 engineers are working together on that to get that taken care of.
This seems like a really big issue that might be interesting to have the community as a workshop or a discussion group. You had a lot of ideas or words, and those would be useful to be in a discussion in the community, it seems to me, even as an educational process. But we're all kind of not aware of what
The issues, yeah.
Yeah, what the issue is.
Not a bad idea.
Well, and we'll have 2 budget hearings too. We can further discuss.
Yeah, encourage people to come to the budget hearings so
Yeah,
we can
we'll
have
have one
those
that-
discussions.
Well, the first one is the
The
25th, which is on the levy rates, and then we'll have another one towards the end of April on the actual budget amounts.
Yeah, the 25th at 11 a.m. is the first one, on the tax levy.
All right, we'll get back on track here. We have one miscellaneous item, the noxious weeds resolution.
This is the one that Doug prepares. He has it here ready. It's basically adopting the state's list of noxious weeds that gives him the authority as the weed commissioner to destroy noxious weeds.
And to be clear, wild parsnip is not on the state's noxious weeds list.
And we could not add.
We can't add it ourselves.
That doesn't mean you can't kill it, does it?
You can kill it all you want.
We can try.
The
That's where
the
native
county
species come
can,
in.
the county can do destruction of weeds, of whatever weeds they want in the right of way. This actually gives the weed commissioner, who's our county sanitarian, authority to destroy noxious weeds on private property if the right procedures are
If the
followed.
landowner isn't taking care of it.
Yeah.
Would someone like to make a
I
motion?
would move to approve the noxious weeds resolution.
I would second that.
We have a motion and second to approve the noxious weeds resolution. Is there any further discussion? If not, it is a resolution. Shirley?
I,
All right. Steve?
Aye.
I also.
we all agreed your breakfast looked pretty good, Steve.
Good job.
Well, it is 10:30. Next on the agenda, a public hearing for the sale of land in Freeport. As the public hearing will go, those that want to speak, before you speak, state your name, so Ben can put it in the minutes. You'll have 2-3 minutes and we'll move right along. Yes,
I motion to open the public hearing.
I second.
we have a motion and second to open the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Public hearing is now open. Anyone with any comments? Questions, statements? Kevin?
Pardon? Copy. Anybody else would like it? Good morning. I just wanted to bring up an issue on the state legislature's statutes of 331.301, general powers and limitations, which pretty much tells exactly what county supervisors are responsible for. In item number 1, it says the county may accept as expressly limited by the Constitution of the state of Iowa, and if not consistent with the laws of the General Assembly, exercise any power and perform any function it deems appropriate to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, property of the county or of its residents, and to preserve and improve the peace and safety and health and welfare and comfort and convenience of its residents. This grant of home rule powers does not include the power to enact private or civil law governing civil relationships, except in incidents to an exercise of an independent county power, excuse me. Essentially, it depicts what the supervisors should be trying to help and preserve in our county. The area of sale was planted in the specific plantings, which was to be seed collected and implemented into the integrated roadside vegetation management program. The Iowa DNR says low maintenance prairie roadsides reduce erosion, slow runoff, trap sediment, and provide habitat while giving the travelers a glimpse of Iowa's prairie past. Unquote. The elimination of this flood mitigation will leave our county citizens more vulnerable to flooding and quicker flooding, not just for Freeport, but for other areas in the county. What I mean there is that with those seeds implanted into the roadside prairies, that will also reduce the flood and the hazards that would be, that could come down from above, at least slow it down. So please, for the protection of the neighborhood of Freeport and even downstream, do not alter the ownership of this prairie seed plot, flood mitigation area. Every bit of flood mitigation is needed here. And thank you from our family. Thank you.
You want to leave one more, I'll put some for Mark Vick and Steve Kelfning, if you want to leave.
Yeah, you can.
They aren't,
There we go.
the chairman requested me not to put action on this week, so we had a chance for all of the board members to be present.
So
Reed,
after the public hearing, that way we can have a discussion amongst everybody, because we've seen how well it works via Zoom.
there's a comment from the public that could read out loud in the chat. Under request, I'm gonna get closer.
Is there a name associated
Yeah,
with it?
Paul Wormers, Spillville. Urgent request regarding the sale of Freeport land. Good morning, Steve Kelsey. As your constituent and a member of We the People, I am writing to request that you do not support the sale of the Freeport land. Thank you, Wormers. And then it goes on to say, I hope, and this is also Paul Wormers. Good morning, Winneshiek County Board of Supervisors. I hope this note finds you all well. I'm writing to express my frustration regarding the meaning of We the People. As quoted in the Winneshiek County Republicans and State of Iowa platform, as citizens, we demand that our elected officials take their office and its duties and responsibilities to us. It is clear that we, the people, are speaking at an approximate rate of 400 to 2 against the sale of the Freeport land. I urge you to consider the overwhelming sentiment. Thank you for your listening, and we, the people, appreciate your commitment to upholding the integrity of your platforms. Best regards, Wormers from Spillville. And I see no other comments in the chat at this time.
Are there any emails?
I did not receive an email, did you? I received like about
Previous.
60 previously that will, in regards to this issue, that we do take into account for this public hearing too, because it's on the same issue. I did not receive any recently.
And we have the petition, the number of people who sent in petitions.
Yes,
So we have petitions of what, 400 and some odd,
approximately.
at least 400.
It was about 400 in petitions, about 48 to 54 in emails that I added up. Of all of that, there were 2 or 3 for the sale, and the rest were against the sale.
2 were emails. 1 was an anonymous phone call the morning of the
The
meeting.
morning of the last public hearing.
So my question is, how many times do we have to go through this?
Last time.
Well, let's just drop it because obviously there are enough people against it that we could say that it was not really a good idea to begin with. And besides that, I have yet to hear any benefit to the county. And if there, maybe Supervisor Langford, maybe you could answer that. If there is a benefit to the county, I'd like to hear it.
Not really a question here, but I respect your stand. Maybe you should respect my decision-making abilities.
So you don't want to explain what you're thinking?
Well, it's only gonna increase the tax revenue, as we were just stating. We have to be creative to find ways to raise more money for the county. Putting this back on a tax schedule will raise more revenue for the county without causing any harm from raised pedestal construction.
I think Mr. Stein said that we wouldn't get any county tax for 4 or 5 years.
It's based on our taxable value growth. So if we have taxable value growth, we get what little there is. And as we get more, it's reduced some. We still get some increase. It just isn't what we could have gotten without the House file. So this right now is not a tax property because the county owns it.
Right.
And it would be under the new, there would be, frankly, it wouldn't come into effect for at least 5 years because the land itself would get added to the tax roll, but solar array construction is exempt from taxes and gets scrolled in over several years, but it'll help in the long run.
So the pros and cons would be, let's throw Freeport under the bus so that we can get some tax money in 4 or 5 years.
That's your opinion.
That is my opinion.
Anyone with any other statements?
I would like to say, there
What's your
is,
name?
excuse me, Jareen Ozengate, a citizen of the county. There is an old saying that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And we have learned that lesson very, very clearly with this issue. This issue has had some good things occurring. One is, while this has gone on, is that you have zoned your floodplain. It calls to issue the prevention idea. with our topography, we have concerns of floodwater runoff within the watershed of the upper Iowa River. And I feel that, as Kevin Lee said, you have responsibilities to your citizens, especially the citizens that are under the worry of floodwaters, and with our climate issue that we do not know what to anticipate. I feel it's important that you address zoning for floodwater runoff. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Right, if I sit up here,
Sure.
Fine.
you've been in the board. My name is Rick Jurgens. Been a resident of Freeport for 36 years. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've watched the county clear the roadside ditch on the north side of Old Stage Road, or sorry, the south side of Old Stage Road. And they've done a wonderful job. Pulled out a lot of big trees, they've done a lot of stuff. It's also stuff that has not been done for 40 years. And there may have been a few trees that have fallen on the road now and then, but that ditch area was never cleaned. It was never allowed to be a watershed for 40 years. I know, I drive there every day. They've done a great job. They've taken out some big trees. They've taken out logs this big around. So you know that it's been there for a long time, right? Now, what I don't understand is if we're clearing that off, which is the perfect idea to do, not only for collision reasons, but also for to remove obstacles so that you have a watershed, that you can get that water down into the creek, into the upper Iowa River as fast as you can. The path of least resistance, that's where water does. It comes down, searches its way out to the lowest point and goes there. That's what we're trying to do, trying to get that water through there. The part I don't understand is we just removed, I don't know, 100, 200 trees, I don't know how many. On the south side of the street. Now we're talking about putting structures on the north side of the state road in the same floodplain. That to me doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you're gonna, and I have nothing against solar panels and that type of thing, which might work, but nevertheless, that's almost like taking the 200 trees you just cut down and replanting them on the other side. You got all these posts that are gonna be pretty much permanent, which will catch debris. That debris will spread the water out and you will create more flooding. And that's just the way it is. I mean, and I'm not trying to go against Roadcast or anybody that wants to bid on it, but any structures down there are gonna create a problem. Now, the solar panels, I've talked a long time with Giles, with Joel. We've talked about solar panels and what we can do and possibly we can work something out there with putting them higher, with putting them further apart, allow the water to flow through there, get the water out of there and not be a problem. Structures will not work that way. Structures are going to stop the water. They're going to spread it out. There's going to be more flooding. And it's just, I mean, the funny part about this whole thing is at Freeport area, that whole buffer zone for 35 years has been nothing but a buffer zone. Nobody ever talked about floods. So it was never considered a flood. I mean, if a little stream comes through there, you get a couple inches of rain, it would come down the next night and the next morning, it would roll down the lawn. Next day it was gone. That's all you ever had there. I know, I saw it. That's not the case anymore. Waters that come down now is almost like a raging river at times. It's not good. So we really have to work with that situation, make this whole thing work.
And that's why we added the restrictions for the part that wasn't in the floodplain. We added the floodplain restrictions to that parcel also. So whatever is going to be built through there has to meet what is permittable in a floodplain.
But you declined the pedestal only construction verbiage in that resolution, so it could have builder put in and structures put in it, as long as it's
I
one
mean,
foot.
could we go with just the pedestals only? I mean, talking to Joel, and I've talked extensively with him on how to do this. And that could be done. I mean, pedestals could be put up to carry these solar panels and leave enough room for all this water to move through as quickly as possible. I mean, back to what I was saying, is this was a buffer zone for 35 years. Nobody ever wanted to buy it. It was never considered a floodplain. Now, all of a sudden, you have a buffer zone plus a floodplain, and now people want to buy it. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I think we can work this out. But I think we have, and the people that have built houses down below that are obstacles in the floodplain, back when they built, that was not a problem. They were not, they were not obstacles. There wasn't that much water coming down. I think what we have to do is figure this out and get that water through as fast as we can. I mean, the water's been coming down there for 1,000 years. It's gonna come for another 1,000, I hope. Problem is to get it through there without causing any problem to the people that live there. I don't think that's, it's not that big a trade-off. Let's make it work.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Anyone online today?
Chairman, could I ask, in the resolution, it mentions that it's not gonna be just in floodplain, but in floodplain fringe area. And there is a difference between fringe area and floodplain as far as restrictions that are going in there. That makes a big difference.
Anyone with any other questions or comments?
So, go ahead.
Jerry had some good comments about what the vegetation does. There's been lots of discussions about that. There's been lots of papers, scientific evidence to show what it does. And yet you, Mr. Chair, continue to say you don't agree with that opinion. What is your basis for that opinion? What's your scientific basis for saying?
I guess I don't have any scientific belief. My belief is that when you state that it can absorb 9 inches of rainwater.
No one said it can absorb 9 inches of rainwater. It varies a lot. It can vary in the type of the storm, the type of the rain, how fast it comes. But yeah, there is scientific data to show that restored prairie and the grasses and the root system can absorb up to that amount of water. That's undisputed. I guess I'm asking you specifically, what information are you relying on to disagree with the benefits of what this buffer will do?
I am not going to disagree that if there's any grass through that area, it's going to absorb water. To what rate? Yes, flow comes as a major factor. And if it's a raging rapids coming through there, I don't care what kind of grass you have there. It's going right over the top of it, and you're not going to stop it.
There's a time delay though. The absorbency of that soil will slow down. And when you're in a flood situation, time makes a big difference. As far as, the poor kids who was floating in the mattress down Freeport, that creek, when it hits a raging upper Iowa, will back up. We've had all kinds of different scenarios down there. But flood mitigation and plantings of these prairie types, even in the ditches around the county, will absorb and slows down the flood rate. It slows down, gives people time. It's a safety issue. It's not a political issue. It's not a farmer issue. Well, it is a farmer issue too, but it's rural, we need those absorbencies because we aren't gonna stop the floods. And if we remove those absorbencies, we're gonna have faster and less time to bail out of our homes. I'm not saying in 16 that all that water came from up there. But the way the situation is that if we would have roadside vegetation, prairies, whatever in the ditch to help to absorb those waters before they get down into the whole system, it's gonna slow down that flood. We may have had, in 10 minutes, the water went up 3 feet that night. It's impossible to stop that, but at least if you got an extra half hour, an extra 15 minutes or whatever it takes, those emergency services can get in there and get their job done faster and easier. And it costs the county a lot less money than trying to remove homes and you know, from not having those absorptive procedures.
All right, is there anyone else with any comments or questions? I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I will motion to close the public hearing. Unless anyone else has a comment.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing is now closed.
Now we can have discussion.
I would think our discussion would come at the next meeting when.
I'd like to have a little bit while we've got people in the room that are affected by flooding in their homes and their streets and their parks. I want to state again, and I will continue to state where my opinion falls on this, is that we have over 400 people from our community who have said, please don't sell this land. We've held 2 public hearings now. At what point it is our duty to listen to our community and to act in the best interest of our community? We've never had this kind of response to a decision in our tenure as supervisors, and I'm not sure the previous supervisors had this type of response to any issue other than the cable issue several years ago, drew a huge crowd up in the other chambers. If we don't listen now to over 400 different people that have said, please don't do this, what's the point? And where's our duty? Where's our responsibility? And I will continue to say that through every single discussion we have on this.
All right, well, we're gonna open the bids. First one is from IRP. Property A, $137,700. Property B, $1,500. Property C, $1,300. Property D, $1,500. For a total of $142,000 for all 4 properties.
What is IRP?
Roller Castle.
Next is just for all 4 properties for $177,450 from Ren Properties LLC.
If I'm doing my math right, both of those offers are under the market value we came up with.
That's why we will have that discussion next week. Because Mark had the appraisal, so he has all that information. And if we don't feel that either one of these offers meets where it needs to be, we do not have to accept them.
So when do the three of you plan on having a discussion, next week or next week?
Next week, as far as I know, I,
Put it on the agenda for next week's fine with me.
So-
Are you guys planning on being?
I will be,
Yeah.
I don't know. if
I will be.
The engineer would need to be here or not.
So
And
next week we'll have the discussion on these bids.
Yes.
as long as I think for sure that Andy will be back also.
I have the paperwork. Andy's already prepared the paperwork if you should decide to accept one of the bids. So I have that.
If you choose not to take those bids, does this issue finish right then and there?
Not necessarily. Just have to decide which direction we're going, if any. At that point in time.
I've been snooping on the internet, obviously, but I believe that in the code somewhere, and I can't cite it right off that, but that there is provisions that when you're selling public land like that, that you have to obtain at least the appraised value in order to sell it. It has to be equal to or above.
And I think that would be answered by our county attorney.
Okay, that's why I make sure you check.
That's why I wanted to make sure he's here
Yeah.
next.
Do we know what that appraised value was now? Can you repeat that?
It was appraised. I do not have the information right in front of me. Mark Vick was.
It was appraised at about 30,000 an acre.
A little
I-
over
I-
30,000.
So I didn't want to come up with an exact number. Have it in front.
I scanned it in and emailed it to Shirley. He would maybe have it. I didn't bring it down, I'm sorry. A 30,000 an acre and a little over 6 acres total.
7 point something, it's closer to 7.
I said we print that email.
Remember reading it, but I don't.
It was real over 30.
I know it was in that ballpark, but. Sometimes when you state a number without having it in front of you, it's not a good feeling.
Will this be resolved before the public hearing on the budget?
This really doesn't reflect that.
Well, in previous meetings, it was iterated in the conversation that there's a $250,000 amount that is anticipated from the sale of this property.
They had 100 or 250,000 in the budget as an anticipated revenue and a 250,000 as an anticipated expense. Knowing that if they didn't get that or got a lower amount, that they would then have to not spend it.
Right.
So if they don't accept any of these bids, then they've got to not spend that in next year's budget, even though it's currently in there as a proposal.
But it was put into the planning of the budget.
So it's a net zero effect on the budget. It doesn't have, because it's both a revenue and expense, so the effect on the budget is net zero.
Yeah. Well, it probably makes a difference.
So if we decide to take out the revenue, then, and we take out the expense, corresponding expense, it's still net zero, whether you have it in there or not.
Okay.
And I intentionally did that when I prepared the budget, just make it a net zero so that we knew that it wouldn't affect the budget, what they decided to do with this.
Yeah, I appreciate that you outlined it, but nobody knew about it.
What was the expense part?
They had a list of some options, using it to make another payment on the new building, using it to do a road project, using it to help pay for the construction of the new road shop at Locust. I mean, one of the options would be to not spend it and lower not lower our spending, but that, I think we were basically thinking we'd use it for another payment or something, or the road expense.
But it portrays to the public through a public meeting that those things, those items on the budget are basically in lieu of not selling that land, that you have to sell that land in order to accomplish those things.
Well, basically they do. They don't have enough money to do those things without selling the land.
But there's money to do other things.
Well, you could, if you wanted to cut something else, yeah, they could still do one of those. But, yeah,
So it's kind of a trade-off option to the public.
and we have a contract on the new building already budgeted our contractual obligation. We were just saying if we got more money, we could help pay that off sooner. But there's nothing requiring us to do that. So that isn't contingent on this. It's just that we could use that money to do that sooner than we would otherwise.
Going outside.
This may also, the sale of another asset, another property, if that occurs.
I didn't quite catch that, Steve.
There is other property that possibly could be sold in the same budget year.
What would they be? It was specified that it was a Freeport land sale in the conversation of the budget. And that's all. I just wanted them to know that that's what happened in the meeting. I appreciate you explaining it.
$35,000 per acre.
That's exactly why I didn't want to sit there.
Yep.
I entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. Motion second for adjournment. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll be here for office hours again today, if anybody would like to stay.
I think you.
Still saying.
But he got it. I think he ran a letter over. He didn't know before the meeting. That's what you know.
Yeah.
Can I see the bids?
What's that?
The bids?
I have the bid.
Who are the Rotocast Plastics and
The other one ran.
that's.
It says by Russell Novak. Properties LLC by Russell. Novak Electric.
Maybe conservation that you don't want buys.
Thank you.
My sister.